Hey, what's up? Today we'll be going over Myra the Magnificent and Unfinity Commander. She's blue-red, and she has the ability whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand, open an attraction. She also has the ability pay X and tap. Exile target instant or sorcery card for mana value X from your graveyard and choose an attraction you control that doesn't have a midway counter on it. Put a midway counter on it. Whenever you visit that attraction, copy the exiled card. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So first off, the whole synergy is you play Mirror, then you play an instant sorcery spell from your hand that will open an attraction, and then you exile that instant sorcery spell. You need to pay the cost basically twice, but then next turn and every turn after that, you have about a 33% chance of just playing that spell for free. Now, if you have roll for advantage, that 33% chance actually increases because you're going to roll 2 dice, like here, name called 1 advantage, and then it's going to pick the highest result. 6 is always a jackpot, so you never really want to pick 1 anyways. So 33% chance goes up to 55%, and then that increases again if you have double roll for advantage to 70%, and then it increases again if you have all 3 cards that roll for advantage, all the way up to 78%, basically guaranteed. Big warning though, Myra actually plays a lot like Panoptic Mirror. I know Panoptic Mirror is banned in EDH for God knows what, but Myra actually plays very similar to her, or to the Mirror. Also, you need to be paying the instant or sorcery spell twice, because once to physically open the attraction, there's no way around that, and then you need to exile a instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard. You don't actually have to. Those don't have to be the same spell, but generally for the first couple they probably are going to be. That's why we're playing these cantrips like Preordain or Serum Visions. Those are really good opening attractions, and they're also fine to just play before you even have Myra out. One last thing is that Myra's first ability, opening an attraction, only works when you cast the spell from your hand, so it's not going to work with Myra's second ability, where your attractions are casting spells for free. It's also not going to work with cards like Muse Vortex. It's not going to work with Epic Experiment, even though those are both in the game, in the deck. It's not going to work with spells that are copied. Generally speaking, copies are not actually cast. They're just copied and created on the stack. It's also not going to work with Flashback, Madness, or this one random card enchantment called Priority Boarding. Just a little caveat that Myra's first ability is actually pretty difficult to trigger. There's almost no way around it. You just have to pay the mana cost and cast it from your hand. Last but not least, the way to win is to actually just cast about 3 or 4 attractions with spells under them. Once you have 3 or 4 attractions with spells under them, you can actually comfortably draw cards for free. You probably have advantage. You're probably nuking your opponent's board pretty significantly, and you are also having counterspell backup. And so counterspell backup is pretty insane. The way attractions work is that you roll a dice on your first main phase, and then if it hits a 5 or a 6, you're going to visit that attraction. Now, I know if you look at the actual attraction cards, they don't actually have 5 or 6 lit up. You need to get the ones with 5 or 6 lit up, because the way Advantage works with Pixie Guide, you need to ignore the lowest result. And the lowest result is probably going to be 1, unless you roll double 1. And then it's also probably going to be 2, 3, and 4. That's just more likely. So you need to always get the attractions with the high numbers. So 4, 5, and 6 are going to be the good numbers. 2, 3, and 1 are going to be the bad numbers. You can spread them out, but generally speaking, that's not a great idea. So how do you win with this deck? It is basically casting spells for free. Let's go ahead and go through the spells. These are basically all just pretty neat. Actually, I think 40% of our spells are going to be instants and sorceries. 40% of the deck is going to be lands, and then the other 20% is going to be miscellaneous. Our removal spells actually frequently just draw us cards. As you can see, Gale's Redirection exiles a spell. It's going to be really good against Dockside Extortionist. Leadership Vacuum, also really good, as in it just draws you a card. What else is here? Good counterspell backup package. And then there's also Will's Reversal. It's not actually that great of an ability, but you probably, if you want Will's Reversal, you probably just want to counter the spell. You don't really want to redirect the target, but it does dice roll, so that's fitting in the theme. In terms of other instant speed stuff, you have instant speed card draw, contact other playing, pretty janky way to draw cards, but it fits the theme, so I decided to include it. Curate is basically a worse curiosity, but we can't afford curiosity. We're on a very tight budget of about, I think, 50 cents a card, as it says over there. Decoy Gambit is actually just card draw because your opponents will never give you the opportunity to bounce a creature if they just don't want to. So it's basically 3 mana draw, potentially 2 cards at instant speed. Assuming your opponents even have creatures. If they don't, then nothing happens. If your opponent actually wants to bounce their creature, you should probably just not target it. There's going to be Impulse, Opt. These are just telling time. These are all just kind of filter cards. And then Fill of Possibility is a way to discard a very specific sorcery called Inevitable Betrayal. So this is actually one of our best win cons. It costs 0 to exile from our graveyard. I don't expect you to suspend this, but worst comes to worst, that's the only way to get into the graveyard. And it's going to steal our opponent's creatures. We don't actually have great creatures. As you can see here, it's basically a bunch of garbage. So Inevitable Betrayal is going to be our number 1 way of winning the game. Number 2 way is probably Tauron. Number 3 is probably Atali. Next, we go over to our Sorcery Speed card draw. This is all of it. So Arcane Endeavor. I know this looks really bad, but the most likely outcome when you roll 2d8s is actually you draw 7 or 8 cards, and then you cast the spell for free. Notably, the spell for free is actually being cast from your hand, so you're going to double dip on opening attractions. So Arcane Endeavor is actually a sleeper, one of the best card draw options in blue. The problem is it doesn't always work. If you have Will, the chances of you not drawing like a really high number of cards is actually really, really low. Don't think of it as roll, average 4, and then you draw 4 cards. Think of it as you roll 2d8s and you pick the highest number. So if we go here, we go to output 2d1, d8, and then it's 2d8 at 1. I think it's like this. And so the highest probability is you have a 53% chance of drawing 7 or 8 cards. And then you actually have a 70% chance of drawing 6 or more cards. So that's pretty good, pretty efficient, and then also it double dips with Myra. It also works with our advantage cards like Pixie Guide, Will, and our Random Enchantment Barbarian class. These are actually the strongest cards in our deck. If it was legal to play Crocstomp, I would put it here, but it's technically not legal. The reroll cards are also insane, but they are also technically not legal. So if you want to put them in, cut something, feel free to do that. Faithless Looting, another good card draw. Muse Vortex doesn't really work with our commander, but 5 mana to either draw some amount of cards. It's actually okay once you get up to 6, where X is 6, but it's okay. Reverse Engineer does work with our attractions. Attractions are actually artifact permanents. They're just sitting on the battlefield, and then you can improvise with them. You should also probably play Thoughtcast if it's within your budget, but we're just going to play Reverse Engineer. Secrets of the Golden City, Ascension actually counts the attractions, so that's why it's here. See the Truth is actually our best form of card draw. It's going to only get 1 card, so it's a really bad impulse when the first time you cast it, but when you're casting it from exile, or just actually anywhere except your hand, you're going to get 3 cards, and so that will work with Myra. She's going to get you 3 cards about 33% of the time, so it's actually just 1 free card over 3 turns. As soon as you have Will, though, or any other advantage card, it's going to be insane. Again, Serum Vision's pretty fine. Stolen Identity, this is actually one of my favorite cards in terms of winning the game. Basically, we're supposed to copy our opponent's creatures because we don't actually have any good creatures. Worst case scenario, you're actually copying one of your mana rocks, and the best mana rock to copy is Hedron Archive. Everything else is pretty mediocre. You can copy like a Mind Stone to draw your cards. You could copy, yep, that's it, Mind Stone. So, Bloodthirsty Blade, this is kind of a weird defensive tech. It's going to go to your opponent's creatures, and this is actually really important because you have basically no way to defend yourself, but Bloodthirsty Blade is one of the best mono-white removal spells in the game. It's going to just pay 1, and then 1 creature is not going to attack you until you only have 1 opponent. Wand of Wonder doesn't really work with our commander, but it's just free instance or sorcery spells to cast, and it's going to synergize with Talron and Young Pyromancer. Otherwise, it does roll dice, so that's kind of in theme. Invoke the Wind is actually one of my favorite removal spells. It's just 5 mana and Mind Control. Big part of it, though, is it's actually going to untap the creature, so you immediately get to play defensively if you want. If it has haste, you can attack with it. Since Myra is actually a blue-red control deck, you really want to play defensive, and so Invoke the Winds is going to steal probably your opponent's commanders. Mizzium Mortar is one of the best board wipes in the game. It's just 6 mana, destroy or deal 4 damage to all creatures you don't control. Pretty strong. Thunder Wave is actually only going to do, on average, 3 damage to each creature. Thankfully, Myra actually is a 4 toughness creature, so it's not going to really matter. It's also hopefully not going to kill Will because you're rolling a dice. Big point though, Will actually has to already be at 4 toughness because you have to resolve the spell completely. So you roll d20 and then deal 3 damage to each creature. This is probably going to kill Will unless Will already has 4 toughness. Vision of Ruin, just kind of a janky way of destroying your opponent's artifacts. Volcanic Torrent is one of the best cards to put under an attraction because when you pop all your attractions with a 6, we're not 100% sure how this works, but we believe all the spells get cast at the same time, and then all the attraction abilities also trigger at the same time. This sounds like a nightmare to resolve in paper, but the reality is you just go left to right. Say, I'm going to resolve this attraction's visitation ability, and then I'm going to resolve the spell that's under it. With Volcanic Torrent, it's not actually Storm, so it doesn't matter what order you cast Volcanic Torrent. Just remember that just count every spell that has been cast so far, and then including Volcanic Torrent, and then that's going to be about how much damage you're doing to each creature your opponents control and each planeswalker your opponents control. So let's say, for example, you have Volcanic Torrent plus some random other spell like Lightning Bolt under 2 attractions. Then you hit a 6. What's going to happen is Volcanic Torrent is going to trigger, it's going to cast, and it's also going to cascade, and you're going to cast Lightning Bolt. So that means 3 spells are going to happen, 3 damage to each creature your opponents control, and then 3 damage to any target, and plus the cascade trigger, or whatever the cascade casts. Volcanic Vision, another one-sided board wipe. Red gets a lot of these, so feel free to abuse it. These are all the mana rocks, nothing really special. Heathen Archive is a good target to copy with Echo Storm, and is also a decent target with the Stolen Identity. You're probably in the bad position if all you're doing is copying Heathen Archives. Another thing is you can actually copy attractions. Most of the time, though, you just want to open new attractions. You don't actually care about opening the same attraction over and over again. It's not really a winning strategy. The attraction visitation abilities don't really matter. All that matters is the spell that is under it. And so Component Pouch is a really, really bad mana rock. I recommend cutting it, but it's in theme if you really like rolling dice. So I figured I would keep it here. These are my 6 creatures. They're not very great. Enclave Cryptologist is kind of like a janky Merfolk Looter. Think of it as like a 3 mana Merfolk Looter, and then next turn, you have the option to pay 4 mana to turn it into an Archivist. So if you do the math, that's 7 mana for an Archivist. Archivist only costs 4 mana, but this is divided up to 2 or 3 turns, whatever you want. And just leaving it as a looter is usually good enough in this deck, unless you're really, really desperate. Tali is kind of our backup win condition. There isn't really a great win condition that just wins the game by itself, but Tali is one of them. Scourge of Fleets is, again, one of our control effects. You definitely want to play more islands whenever you use Temple of or Myriad Landscape, Terramorphic. You just want to tutor up as many islands as possible so that Scourge of Fleets does its job. Talran, Sky Summoner, and Young P just generate chump blockers. Talran is actually crucial, possibly our secret commander, because whenever you cast free spells with Myra, you're gonna be making tons of Drakes. It's also pretty good synergy with Stolen Identity because most people can't actually block a 2/2 Drake. Tomb of Horrors Adventure is just a random card I threw in. It's actually pretty good in the sense that it draws you a land when it enters the battlefield. It's a pretty good copy target because initiative works. You can take the initiative when you already have the initiative, and it's going to trigger a venture. Barbarian class is actually one of the strongest cards in our deck. It gives you advantage. Like I said, advantage is going to increase your chances of rolling a 6 by like 20%, or triggering all of that good jazz. The other stuff I would never bother leveling up. You should probably have better stuff to do. Double Vision, one of the best ways to copy our spells. Otherwise, yeah, it's fine. And priority boarding, another decent way of drawing cards. It's not a great way, but think of it as a 3 mana Phyrexian Arena, because you're going to be rolling a dice on each of your main phases, and then you just pray you hit a land because there's no guarantee that the spell on top of your deck is actually less mana value. So yeah, that's about it. The play pattern is just cast Myra, cast some random 1 mana cantrip, something like Opt, something like Impulse, Telling Time, and then big note is actually that your attractions are gonna trigger on your first main phase. So you're gonna go through untap, upkeep, draw, and then on your draw after you see your card, then you can choose to cast like Telling Time at instant speed, and then exile Telling Time immediately, open an attraction, and then get to Visitation right away. That's definitely a crucial sequencing and timing that you have to be comfortable with. Otherwise, Myra is going to be really, really strong. She plays like Panoptic Myra in case you want to play a banned card in Commander. That's about it.